Hello, welcome to our video. I've got a special guest with me, Dave Savory again. Dave and Jamie have been with us for a couple of days doing a few interesting experiments, which you'll probably see on their channels. But actually what we wanted to talk through is one of the things we've been playing about with is actually looking a bit more into harmonics.
Yes, it's always a pleasure to be in your lair, and harmonics aren't something that I've had a lot of exposure to, so I'll let you do all the talking, Kev.
Well, it's a hard concept to get over, so we've struggled with how do we visualise this in a form that's actually sort of obvious to people. So harmonics are all about these non-linear loads, as you'll hear people talk about, but something that isn't a straight AC sine wave, that it's actually got a bit of a funny wiggly waveform, for want of a better term, because the switching things going in. So typical example we've got here is a compact fluorescent lamp. Do you remember them before LEDs?
Fine things, often lasted a little longer than some of the LEDs, obviously. But that's an interesting little a rig that you've made there, Kev.
It is. It's a bit jerry-rigged and probably not the best thing to create. But really, all we've done is taken a compact fluorescent and we've put a coil of wire on there just to increase the turns and give us basically a better display, so you can actually see it, and then it's in the measurement range of most equipment in that regard, just to see what's going on.
So that lamp plus coil is giving us. It's giving us a rather funky waveform.
It is. You can just about see it here on our Qualistar, on our Class A Qualistar. You can see on the screen here, and obviously I'll put a picture up now, but you can see on the screen now that we've actually got quite a funky looking waveform. You know, it's quite peaky, and there's a lot going in there from a sort of harmonics point of view, really. So if we actually pop over onto the harmonics mode, and again, I'll put a picture up of this, but you can actually see there that a lot of the content is not just in the fundamental, but it's actually spread out over the harmonic spectrum. So there's actually quite a wide bandwidth of currents that's going on generated by this compact fluorescent. So what we're actually looking at here is how do we measure the current? Because this is an interesting thing, isn't it? You know, we want to know how much current does that compact fluorescent give or take our contraption that we've got.
If only we had a very expensive piece of equipment that could tell us.
Well, exactly. So, you know, we do have a power quality analyzer at hand. So if I just actually go back onto the sort of RMS mode on there, what we can see on here, and it's quite straightforward to see at the top, we're getting about 8.1 amps according to this. Now remember, that's 8.1 amps from that waveform. So this is where you get into a sort of true RMS read. Is what we're actually doing is we're taking this funny looking waveform, and we're not just doing 7071 times the peak like you do with a standard sine wave. It's actually looking at that waveform and giving you a true, a proper RMS reading for that funny looking waveform. But that's taken into account all of those frequencies.
Yeah, and just to say as well, 8 amps obviously is a hell of a lot for a compact fluorescent.
No.
Like that. That's our wire coil. That's really putting that extra current on there, isn't it?
Yeah. So imagine you had a lot of these. That would be a similar waveform to what you're getting. But it's demonstrating a sort of standard non-linear load. Now,
that's saying 8 amps.
That's saying about 8.1 amps.
Let me just get my.
So let's have a look at his generic budget clamp meter. Not a Chauvinoni product, by the way. So let's see what this actually says that is.
Well, I'm seeing 4.7, which is about half of what this thing gives.
Yeah. So well, this is an interesting one, and this isn't just specific to this manufacturer of this generic clamp that we've had. Many clamps that are out there, in fact, a majority of them that are on the market, don't actually have the bandwidth to fully read the currents generated by non-linear loads.
So that's I suppose with these more budget clamps, when you're getting a current reading, it's more of an indication than a reading with any accuracy.
It is. It's not wrong, but what it's doing is it's only capturing maybe the fundamental frequency at 50 hertz and maybe a little bit either side. So if you look on the specification sheet, often they will actually declare what the frequency response is. But you need to be aware of that, because you're actually saying that's the current. And you may be sizing your cable, sizing your protected devices on there, and you're not actually aware of all of the current that's actually present just by doing a measurement with those sort of clamps. So what's the answer?
I wonder if there's a more featured piece of equipment, perhaps. Now, we have I've been using this out in the field. This is the Chauvinoni F65, which is a marvellous clamp meter. It does earth leakage measurements. So if you're in the market for an earth leakage clamp, But also this has a selectable range, doesn't it? So
Yeah, so
we place that on.
So as well as being an earth leakage
coil.
clamp, obviously it's got a. Can you add in there, Dave? without
Do it easily off camera.
So yeah, with an earth leakage, this is an earth leakage clamp, but it's also got a higher current range, so we're using it on the higher current range. But one of the things that's different about most of the Chauvinat new products is that they actually have a wide bandwidth. So what we're getting with these is we're actually able to measure all of that harmonic content as well. So when we use something like a Class A power quality analyzer, we're getting about, what's it saying on there now? About just over 8 amps. And what's it saying on the F65?
The F65 in wide mode is indeed giving us 8 amps.
Yeah, so actually we're seeing
the two much together.
With the F65. So that's a massive difference really between what we were getting with a sort of generic clamp meter versus what we're getting with a wider bandwidth.
And the interesting thing with this as well is we can kind of put it somewhere near generic clamp meter mode, because we can switch from wide to the 50-60 hertz mode.
Yeah, so this actually has a filter built into it where you can actually filter down to see what's really at the fundamental frequencies and ignore all of the others. So you can actually get an idea of what's in your harmonics and what's at the fundamental. And what's that saying now, Dave?
Well, we're saying looking at about 6.5 amps in well, presumably the fundamental, but we don't know. I don't know if that includes some of the.
It will include a little bit either side.
Yeah.
There will be a filter in there, and obviously filters tend to spread across.
I think we just killed our light.
So I think the fluorescence just gone out at that point, so we'll turn that off now.
But yeah, it's interesting as well, like even in the fundamental mode on that clamp, it's still giving us a higher reading than the more generic clamp meter did. That was giving us 4.7, was it?
So the frequency response and also how they calculate the true RMS value can be quite interesting as well. So yeah, it's one of the things that people don't always appreciate when they're looking for clamps, and what's true for a normal clamp is also true for an earth leakage clamp as well.
Yeah.
So the frequency response of an earth leakage clamp can be quite important, because things like RCDs actually have a frequency response up to maybe 1 kilohertz. So actually being able to capture all of that leakage for nuisance tripping and things like that is really important.
There you go. Not all clamp meters are made equal.
Very true.
Have to look at the range of harmonics that they're taking into
and that's true with any test equipment. You know, we're not saying that other products are incorrect. It's just when you look at how the things are actually being measured and what's been included within that reading, they will have a frequency range.
If a clamp meter is marked as true RMS, does that mean it's including more of the harmonics usually?
Usually there's more going on in there than just looking at the peak and then multiplying it by a set value. They're actually doing some sort of measurement. But again, it just depends on what the sampling is and how much maths is going on within there. So generally sometimes you want to know what's the difference between maybe a more expensive product and a cheaper product. It can be the frequency response, but actually we've seen, you know, very expensive meters subjected to this test, and actually they don't really have the same bandwidth response of something like the Chauvinat new products, which are designed, because obviously Chauvinat new, it's sort of what we do really from that side of things.
You can't even use price as a guidance, and you've really
not
got to
always. Look at the spec sheet, and that's I would say that about any test equipment, whether it's ours or anybody else's. Go to the data sheet and read what it's actually doing, because, you know, just taking it for granted that, you know, it's apples and apples, not really true in many cases.
Do you need an electrician to get your light working again?
I think we probably need to get another bulb, Dave.
That'll be £70 please to fix that.
So, here you go, Dave, thanks very much. So he's changed me light bulb, he did charge me for it, but he's got us up and running again, very reliable electrician, got us up and running again with a different bulb.
Different lamp, therefore different currents.
Different current, so it's actually going to cost us more electricity as well, this is the thing, so this is the problem. But
unfortunately the last lamp failed before we managed to take the captures of
so the screen captures, so forgive us for that, but what we've actually got here is we will show you what we're getting with the different compact fluorescent, although this one isn't that compact really from that side of things. Bit of a chunky thing. So you can see we're getting a similar waveform, and obviously as long as the bulb lasts we'll put you some B-roll up on there. But what we can see now is we're actually getting, if I can avoid the glare on the screen, about 13 amps. So we're actually reading about 13 amps with that, and we have included our generic tester clamp meter on here, and what we're reading, Dave?
8.1. So
8.1. So that's quite a difference between 13 and 8.1, isn't it, really?
Let's swap that for the F65 again.
Let's get the F65 in now. This is where we've got the trained electrician in to do this, because it's connecting in.
Don't try this at home, kids.
and we'll see what the F65
If
says.
you hear any buzzing, it's from this coil. So the F65 is indeed giving us 13 amps.
So that's actually saying 13 amps.
Yeah, about the same. 13.7. It keeps jumping around on there. 13.8. So yeah, we are reading.
So pretty much the F65 is agreeing with the Class A power quality analyzer, and if I just put the 50 or 60 hertz filter bit in, that's actually dropped down to now, what, about 11 amps?
11 amps, yeah. Which is still higher than the generic meter was able to read.
So you can see most of that is at the fundamental, so 11-ish amps is around the fundamental frequency, and then obviously the rest will be just sort of outside that. But there is certainly a significant difference between the Class A power quality analyzer, which is pretty much as good as you're going to get. Our F65 is agreeing with that, but obviously if we put the filtering in, you can see there's a difference when we're just looking at the fundamental. And then the generic clamp meter is actually reading a hell of a lot lower.
Yeah, I'm really surprised that it's so far out.
Yeah, and this is it's going to drive you mad now, isn't it? You're going to be going around measuring everything with 2 clamp meters now.
Right, well, I've got the F65, mate, so I'm all right. Get yourself a decent clamp.
Let's get some B-roll before this goes and costs me some more money.